trying not to disturb my mom, I sat up on the bed and I looked at him and I started blasting questions. And I said, I remembered him telling him, who are you? Why did you come like this? Why are you scaring me? What have I done? I'm a little kid. Why you scare me? And he kept smiling and he looked at his side and then he said, do you know who I am? And I said, no, I don't know who you are. And he said, I am Jesus of Nazareth. He spoke this in Tibet, in Amdo language. He spoke to me completely and he says, I am the one who brought your parents from Tibet. I knew you before you were born, Tending. I said, how do you know my name? Well, he said, Tending. I said, I knew you before you were born. I am the one that named you. And then he kept talking to me. We had a long conversation back and forth. And during that, after a while, then he said, Tending, now, look at me. And I looked at him and he said, do you see this in my hand? And he lifted his left hand up. And in his left hand was a book shining. And this book is the book of life. He said, your name is already inscribed in it. On the other side, then he turned around and said, look at my right hand. And he said, this is the sword that appeared in his hand that drove Adam and Eve out of the Garden of Eden. He said, if you ever leave me, if you ever betray me, if you ever forsake me, this sword will cut your name from the book of the living. So, it wasn't, in my case, being a follower of Jesus isn't my own decision. It wasn't my choice, but it was put upon me. And now I realize that we as children of God, none of us in humanity are choosing God to be the dad, but rather we are His children by heritage.
By default.
By default. We are already chosen. We are His children. And we are supposed to love Him and follow Him.
And to accept.
And walk in His ways. And to accept His forgiveness and His grace. So, for me, that night as I talked with Him and He showed me these two things. And then He said to me, you will come close to death. Physical death, but you will not die. You will be sick, but I will heal you. Whatever happens to you, until I don't want to bring you home, you will live. And that's what He told me then. And then He said, now come here. And He showed me His hands. He said, you see the holes in my hand? He said, I died for you, but I'm alive. He said, come closer. And I went closer to Him and He put His hand on my head. It was heavy. He said, see, I'm not a ghost. This is flesh and blood. And He put His hand on my head heavy and He said, Tamling, I bless you. 3 times He repeated that. 3 times He anointed me. And He said, you are my child now. And now He said, watch me go. But I am not leaving you ever. I'm going back the way you saw me coming. But my presence will be with you always, wherever you go. And He drifted back through the window. And as I looked at Him that night, I saw Him drift up into the sky. And it became a small light and a star again up in the sky, amongst the sky. I went to sleep that night. I thought maybe back in my head I was thinking as a kid, a beautiful dream. But in the morning, my mother didn't wake me up as usual because she would normally wake me by about 4:30, 5 o'clock and then drag me along with her and we would walk around the hillside looking for that young Tibetan man. But that morning she didn't. She was waiting patiently for me to wake up. She had brought some milk, got some sugar, made it sweet and kept it for me. And as I opened my eyes, she picked me up from bed, made me sit on a lap, gave me my milk to drink. And she loved me a lot as a little kid, I know that. But she was showing extra love to me. And I'm thinking, why is she doing that to me today? And then she suddenly asked me this question, who were you talking to last night? And I'm thinking, how do you know, Amma? I was dreaming last night. No, she repeated every things that I said in sequence. And then she said, what was the answer? She asked me. And then I started giving her the answer. So this is what I was told. This is what He said. And Mama just loved me more. She knew I was God's child. But more than me being God's child, she is also a child of God.
Amen.
That's the truth.
Amen.
You know, Jesus loves us all.
He sure does. So did the boy ever come back?
Yes, about 3 or 4 weeks later, I believe, this young man came back to my mother. We were walking through the town and he met us and he came running to my mother and asked my mother for forgiveness, gave himself up to the police, and then my father was let go
Wow.
from the prison.
Wow. What a miracle.
This
That's
is just
amazing.
yeah. This